Hello and welcome to Norfolk Fostering Service. Thank you for joining us this evening for our first online Q&A session. Hopefully today we'll be able to answer some of your questions about fostering and help you decide whether fostering is something that's right for you and for your family at this time. So my name is Mika Jagger. I'm a social worker in the fostering recruitment team, and I'm joined by my colleague Clea, who is a supervising social worker in the supervision team. We'll be answering your questions tonight, and we're also joined by our colleagues Camilla and Scott, who are working hard in the background. So you can ask us any questions about fostering in the Q&A section. So that's if you hover over that, it's two little speech bubbles, and you can just put your question in there, and Scott, our marketing manager, is just working in the background to send those questions to us. And we'll pick those up and just talk about them as we go along. Now, if we feel that your questions are a bit more of a personal nature, then what we might do is just contact you directly to organise kind of a one-to-one conversation, if that's more appropriate. So yeah, we're ready to get underway. So please put your questions in the box now. Right, so. Okay, so the first question we've got this evening is how long does the assessment take? So the process to, let's say if your kind of journey in fostering starts this evening, you know, hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your questions. And if you are interested in finding out a bit more about fostering, you can call our duty team, who will kind of ask you a few kind of initial questions to, you know, really think about whether fostering is right for you. So, you know, those will be questions like, you know, do you have a spare bedroom? And, you know, you can ask more questions at that time. And at that point, you will, if actually it's something you're interested in and our duty workers feel that it's something that would be right for you, potentially, you'll be invited to come along to an information evening. So that's another opportunity to find out a bit more about fostering. At the moment, so we were doing information evenings sort of face to face, but at the moment we are doing them much like this, sort of virtually. So that would be the next step, and then at that point you will have the opportunity to make a formal kind of application, and that's through a register of interest form. So that will ask you for, you know, a lot of details, and you know, you'd be asked to give kind of names for references and that sort of information. So once we've got that, from that point to you becoming going to panel to be approved to become a foster carer, that process is around 6 months. So there's a lot that goes into that. It's very in-depth assessment, but that's, you know, it's about a 6-month time frame. Okay, so the next question I've got is, do I need to be able to drive? So I think that it's a difficult one to answer. I think it would be, you know, fostering requires there's a lot of responsibilities in terms of transporting children either to school, to various activities. So actually, you know, learning to drive is a real is really important. I think, you know, I think Clea can probably come in and tell us maybe a bit more about fostering and driving, but I would say as a short initial answer, I would say it would be good to have access to a car. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Clea?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it would be possible not to drive, but it would be quite restrictive in terms of who you could foster and the circumstances sort of that an individual child is in. The expectation is that foster carers will support children to get to family time with their birth families, if that's part of their care planning, school, if there's, you know, depending on the individual needs of the child. So I think it would be really hard to foster without driving. I think we do have foster carers that don't drive, but they're availability for children is very restricted in terms of that child's needs. So ideally, being able to drive would be good.
Thanks for that, Clea. Yeah, I think, you know, as Clea said, it, you know, if you don't drive yourself, it would be really good if, you know, if you are applying to foster as a couple, you know, that one of you can drive, that would be ideal. Okay, so the next question we've got is, I have 2 birth children, can I still foster? So I think the short answer to that is yes. I think everyone's situation is very different, and part of the you know, speaking to us and thinking about whether fostering is right for you, you know, we'll talk to you about you know, the needs of your birth children, and whether actually fostering at this moment in time is not only right for you, but right for them and right for the whole family. So I think, you know, having your own children certainly doesn't mean that you can't foster. Actually, it's if you have your own children, it's you know, you have the experience of bringing up children, and that's, you know, that's a strength. But it's really about thinking about whether it's the right time for you and your family. Is there anything that you would add to that, Clea, around you know, foster carers who have birth children?
Yeah, I mean, I think lots and lots of my foster carers have birth children in the fostering household, and it can be an incredibly enriching experience for your family life, and also for the fostering experience of the children that you care for. But I think you're absolutely right in that the needs of your birth children will be really seriously considered within the assessment process. And I think you'll be asked to think quite hard about the impact of some of the trauma behaviours that foster children can have on your birth children. But I think it's a thing that will be carefully assessed, and that will be ongoing. Even once you become foster carers, you know, we have to very seriously sort of supervise the whole family, the whole fostering family, when people become foster carers, and take into account the sort of ongoing needs of birth children. And there is a specific birth children service as well that I think has been set up to kind of meet the needs of birth children. But I think it can be really positive for everyone. But again, it's just something that we have to kind of look after your family around, you know, as you go into your fostering career.
Okay, thanks for that, Clea. I think, yeah, just to add to what Clea said there, I think it's Clea's job is very much around matching you know, the foster carers that she supervises and supports to have, you know, the right child in placement. So it's about that careful matching process. Okay, so the next question we've got is, we have 2 family pets, a dog and a cat. I'm concerned about allergies. Okay, so I think I'm not absolutely certain whether you mean whether you're concerned about a child coming in who might have allergies. So I'll try and kind of answer it in a more kind of wider way. So having pets, you know, it doesn't discount you from fostering. I think pets can be really enriching for children, and often when children come into a foster placement, they will kind of make friends with the dog and the cat, you know, before that they're ready to talk to anyone really in the house. So I think, you know, dogs and cats can be great. I think, you know, one of the things that we just ask you to consider is the same safety kind of considerations that you would have with your own children. So it's just, you know, it's just around keeping animals kind of hygienic and well looked after, you know, keep being there to sort of supervise children around around pets. And again, if there was a child who had an allergy, you know, it would just be that they wouldn't be matched with a household where there is pets. So, you know, that's something that we look at carefully. I think Clea might be able to add a bit more to that as well.
Yeah, it was just to add that we do have health and safety assessments regarding all pets in fostering households that we do regularly. So any kind of incident that's happened, or any worries that you have or that the child has around family pets, they will be regularly assessed. And having recently just come across this issue where one of my fostering families wanted to buy a dog and wanted to get a rescue dog, there are no clear guidelines saying that can't happen, but we kind of took a very common sense approach, and the history of that dog meant that they needed to be around older children rather than younger children, which obviously would have then quite significantly restricted foster children coming into the family. So we kind of took the approach of getting a puppy so that they could know exactly how that puppy had been raised and what influences that puppy had had. And that was our way around that. So we will do risk assessments on all pets, and as you said, you know, if a child is suffering with allergies, then they just simply won't be placed with you.
Thanks, Clea. Yeah, that's really quite a great answer. I think you covered all aspects of that. So the next question is, can we take a foster child on holiday? So yes, I mean, Clea might want to add something to this, but yes, absolutely. I think that you know, we really encourage foster carers to take children on holiday. These just, you know, going on holiday is an amazing experience, and it you know, really enriches your life and your experiences. And some of the children who might come into foster care might not have had those might not have been on holiday, and so that, you know, there's really special kind of, you know, bonding experiences. And I think, you know, holidays are really positive. I think, you know, just to mention that if you are going to go abroad, that there's just some practical considerations around that. So you know, you want to consider whether the child in question has a passport, and just let your so it's about letting the supervising social worker and the child social worker know that that's your intention. So you know, it might be that they don't have a passport and we have to get that sorted for them, and as you know, that can sort of take a while. You know, and I think it's just making sure that that child's birth family are aware if they're going abroad. So yes, there's just, you know, just those considerations around are there any sort of risk assessments that need to be done around any activities that you're doing, or you know, so it's just kind of thinking about you know, letting everyone know. But you know, actually going on holiday, I think definitely is a really positive thing. So is there anything you wanted to add to that one, Clea?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would definitely emphasise, as you've said, planning ahead is key for being able to take foster children on holiday. For all the reasons you said, sometimes there are not passports in place, and that can take a while. And that's about galvanising ourselves and the child social worker, as you say. There can be some issues around parents being in agreement with children going abroad, and whilst ultimately, if they are on a care order, that is possible, I think, you know, where there's an absolute split opinion, it can get a bit tricky, because obviously we want to kind of meet the child's needs, but also listen to the parents who still have some PR in respect of their children. And then what I would say from a fostering perspective is that actually we really expect that if there are going to be family holidays, then foster children will be taken with you as a family, as part of owning and claiming that child. And that's the ideal, really.
Thank you so much, Clea. So the next question is, can children share bedrooms? So we don't kind of suggest that children share bedrooms. I think that that's that's just around children having their own space, which is really important. So your own children having their own space, a foster child having their own space, but also around just keeping everyone safe. So it's really important in that sense. If I think the exception to that is if you have siblings who come into your care and they are perhaps used to sharing a room and they really want to share a room, then that could be that could be an exception to that. That could be quite appropriate. The other one I would say is if you're caring for a very young baby, as you would with your own, they would need to be with you in those in their very when they're a very young baby, so that you can kind of respond to their needs. So in that sense, that a baby would be with the foster carers for the first kind of part of their life. So yeah, that's is there anything you think to add to that one? No, thanks, Clea. Okay, so the next question is, do I need experience in childcare? So yes, I think that actually we are looking for people who want to become foster carers who have worked with children. One of the key things that we always say is actually I think if you kind of have the job specification for foster carer at the top of it, it should be must like children. It's really important that you actually like working with children, but also any experience that you have working with children can be really important in fostering. And that might be that you've had your own children, it might be that you've worked with children, or perhaps you've worked with children with additional needs, or work with children who perhaps have developmental trauma, as many of our looked after children do. So I think that experience actually is key, and that's something that you will talk about with your assessing social worker. You'll talk about the experience you've got and how that could feed into fostering and how that could support you, really. Is there anything you wanted to add to that one, Clea, or would you like me to move on?
So I was just going to add that, I mean, that sort of experience of working or caring or being with children can be very informal. It can be that you're very, I think I'm right in saying, can be that you're very hands-on auntie, that you've done some babysitting, and that you've got a kind of empathy and sort of passion for supporting and caring children. And I think if that's what you want to do, you will be able to find that in your kind of life, and as you say, it will be explored by the assessing social worker.
Thank you. The next question is, will our religion affect an application? So I think I think as a general kind of short answer, I would say absolutely not. I think it's about the fostering assessment and getting to know you more is more about just really understanding what life is like for you as your family, how you function, and just thinking about a child coming into that environment. So one of the things that I would consider is that as a foster carer, you may have a child who comes to live with you who is of a different religion. It might be that you're not religious, but you have a child who comes to live with you who does practice a religion, and we would have that expectation that you support them to access their community and their religion. So it's thinking about, I guess it's about thinking about how you would feel about doing that. Is that something you would feel able to promote for a child? And so I think those are really the important questions, but your religion doesn't affect your fostering sort of application. Okay, so the next question is, can I foster if I have a medical condition? So I think that it's fair to say that, you know, many of us have medical conditions and, you know, work or foster or, you know, do, you know, I'm sure that that's something that, you know, we live with, and so actually having a medical condition in itself doesn't kind of mean that you can't foster. I think again it's about, you know, taking that time during the assessment to think about it with your assessing worker and think about how that medical condition affects your day-to-day life, your capacity and your availability to be there for a child, whether that's, you know, your emotional availability, your physical availability. Those things are really important. So, you know, you may have a medical condition that actually doesn't impact, you know, your availability for a child. And in that case, you know, that wouldn't be an issue. And yeah, I think that it's also, I would say that certain kind of conditions that, you know, can be triggered by stress, and, you know, actually fostering can be stressful. You know, there are things that are unpredictable about fostering, so I think it's just about thinking about that and thinking about, you know, who's in your support network, who do you go to for support, how do you manage stress. So that's an important thing to think about as well. Clea, would you be able to come in on that around having a medical condition and fostering?
I mean, I'd agree with everything you said. I think an important part of the assessment process is that we do seek, we will be seeking a medical opinion from your GP around how they feel that your condition may or may not impact on fostering. So there will be that part. That we have that information that we have to find out. But again, it's very much, as you're saying, looking at your individual needs, your individual circumstances, and exploring how or if that's going to be impacted by the challenges of fostering.
Lovely, thank you. So the next question is, can we use babysitters? So yes, you can use babysitters. I think maybe ask Clea to come and tell us a bit more about that, but we use delegated authority, which means that, you know, if you would ask people who are within your network who might look after your own children, and that would be something that you could do as a foster carer. But I'm going to ask Clea to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one of the most brilliant things about fostering and sort of, you know, embraces foster carers as colleagues and professionals, which is what we aim to do, is that we do have something called delegated authority, where we trust the foster carers who've been through an assessment, have been approved by us as responsible, you know, people that are going to protect and look after children. And with that comes the trust that we have for them to make decisions around who cares for their children, their foster children, for periods of time, such as going out, going away for short periods of time. And so as long as you inform us that those are your plans and we have contact details, we don't have to then do any subsequent checks on those people, so it's not intrusive in that way, and we trust your judgment, basically. So you know, that's a really positive part of fostering, I think.
Lovely, thank you, Clea. The next question is, what support and training is offered? So I think I'll talk about the support and training that's offered pre going to panel, and then Clea can tell us a bit more about, you know, once foster care is approved, what that looks like. So as someone who's going through the fostering assessment process, if you once you kind of have your initial visit with an assessing social worker, and if the decision is that actually it's a positive decision, you'll be put forward to what we call skills to foster training. It's a 3-day course, which previously was taking place face to face, But that's, you know, obviously with COVID-19, we're being creative as to how we do that now. So that's being delivered virtually at the moment, much like we're talking now. So Skills to Foster is really about giving you those kind of foundation kind of skills around what being a foster carer looks like, you know, what are the day-to-day tasks, you know, what issues do you need to really consider for a child coming into your care, what are the experiences that they might have had. So it really gives you a real foundation kind of knowledge about fostering, the professionals that you're going to work with, you know, your kind of the impact on your family, I guess, is one of the big things that we talk about during skills. And for a lot of people, I think skills to foster training is that time where you really consider the impact of fostering on you and your family and whether it's right for you. So that's kind of skills. You'll also do a paediatric first aid training course, and then through the assessment process, you know, you'll be supported by your assessing social worker who will kind of come and visit you regularly, and you know, there'll be, you'll have sessions where you discuss fostering, you discuss what it's going to look like for your family, and through that process you can also have a fostering buddy. So a buddy is a very experienced foster carer who can support you know, new and upcoming foster carers. So that's kind of somebody else that you can talk to, who can give you their, you know, their honest, their personal kind of experiences, and you know, really knows the role. So that's kind of in terms of support before you go to panel. Clea, could you just tell us a little bit about support and training after panel?
Yes, yeah. So it is, as I was saying earlier, about sort of considering foster carers as colleagues and professionals. It is also therefore a real expectation of the fostering service that foster carers do training, and where it's a couple who are fostering, as much as possible, both foster carers do that training, although in some cases one of the secondary foster carer will often work, and therefore the primary carer undertakes the majority of the training. However, to begin with, in the first year, there are 4 mandatory training programs that we ask both foster carers to commit to and to do. And I think once you go through, once you're approved as foster carers, you then go back to the panel that approved you after your first year to kind of see how that's gone and review and celebrate what's happened, and then to have your approval extended. And within that first year is the expectation that you will undertake those 4 mandatory courses, which I won't overload you with in terms of what they are, but they're what we consider to be our basic level of learning that we expect all foster carers to do. On top of that, we have an amazing training offer, with a large number of courses covering a huge areas of specialism. We have training on attachment and trauma. We have training on managing challenging and aggressive behaviours. We have training on adolescent brain development. We have training on moving towards independence if you're fostering older children. We have training on bridging children to adoption if you're going to be working at the younger end of the age scale. We do have a brilliant training offer. And as a supervising social worker, my expectation and those of my colleagues is that you will train much more widely than your 4 mandatory courses, because the expectation of social workers and most professionals is that they continue their professional development, and that is what we want our foster carers to do as well. Also, in terms of maintaining professional development, there's learning that will come in all aspects of your life that we encourage you to kind of look at and log. in terms of what you listen to on the radio, what you see on the TV, what you talk to with other fostering colleagues, what you talk about with other fostering colleagues. And so that's training. In terms of support that's available to you, you touched on the buddying system, which is really has been very good for lots of my carers who've been in their first year of fostering recently. We have the Fostering Hub, which you're probably aware of, which is our outward-facing page, sort of discussing all issues relating to fostering. There is a Facebook page that's purely open for foster carers and not social workers. So that gives you a real community that you can kind of seek support from and ask questions. I've known of lots of foster carers that have got brilliant advice from their colleagues that way. We run network groups in different areas around Norfolk. So we have our duty worker and usually a social worker present. We have often someone coming in to do a discussion around something that's relevant to fostering. The last one I went to, we had someone who specialised in sleep coming to do a talk, which was incredibly interesting and very informative. There's breakfast clubs that foster carers run for you to go and have breakfast and chat with. And then we also have a 24/7 availability to you. So even when office shuts down, there's a number that you can call out of hours that will get you to a social worker who specialises in fostering to support you. And if needs be, that can then be progressed further onto our emergency duty team, or you just have someone to talk to if you need someone to talk to out of hours. So the support offer is also incredibly good for our foster carers. Yeah.
Thank you, Clea. I think it's really important to mention as well that obviously you will have a supervising social worker, you know, somebody like Clea who actually is invaluable as your go-to person, who will get to know you and your family really well. They'll get to know what's going on for you, what's going on for your children. So, you know, that I think that is really you know, that's one of the most important kind of relationships that you'll have. And you know, as I sort of said earlier, it's you know, Clea's job to match foster carers with children who need placement. So because obviously we'll have done a fostering assessment, we'll know you really well from that, and then you'll have a supervising social worker who gets to know you really well. You know, we'll be able to match you with the right child who is going to fit with your family. And I think Clea's just going to come back and say a bit more about that.
Yeah, I did actually completely forget the role of the supervising social worker in that. But in your first year of sort of being approved to foster carers, you will have a supervising social worker. We will visit minimum every 4 weeks for that first year. After you've been reapproved, that can go to 6 weekly or 12 weekly if you are fostering someone for the long term, and that's what the care plan is. However, we are an incredibly responsive service, so if you need us to up visits at times of stress, we will do that. We try and be as available as we can by phone, by email, and it just depends what's going on for you and your sort of fostering family at that time as to sort of the support that we can offer. But I find that we are incredibly responsive, and actually the workforce is very stable in fostering, and the relationships that you build with supervising social workers can be incredibly protective and very enriching in terms of supporting you to foster successfully.
Thank you, Clea. So the next question is, how long do placements last? So it's quite a difficult question. Placements can be very short term. So you might you might have a placement that's only a few days, and it's like an emergency placement, so that's possible. But you might have a placement that goes on until a child reaches independence. So that could be 10, 12 years. depending on the age of the child when they come to live with you. So you know, placements can be very, very short term, and they can be very long term. So it's, you know, I think that it's what that child needs. And sometimes the care plan for children is that they will be fostered long term until they reach independence, in which case you know, that child will become really you know, that they will obviously become part of your family, but you know, that will be a very long-term relationship. And yeah, so I think, you know, it can be either end of that sort of time spectrum. So the next question is, can I work and foster at the same time? So I think I can say a bit about that, and then I'll ask Claire to come in if she wants to say a bit about that as well. So you know, we'll ask you a lot about this when you initially sort of call us and speak to us about fostering, because I think that it's there are foster carers who do work and foster at the same time, but it's really about availability. So if you are a couple who want to foster, it might be that one of you works full time and one of you actually is stays at home and fosters, and you know, it might be that both of you work. And I think it's really key to think about whether you have the flexibility within your job. So if you are working sort of part-time, you know, are you able to have that conversation with your employer around, you know, if you've got a child who's really struggling in the mornings to get up and go to school, you know, is having a really difficult time, you know, are you able to kind of say, you know, to your employer, actually, I can't come, you know, I'm going to be late today. You know, it's really thinking about how flexible your job is. And you know, the other thing I would say about working and fostering is, if you are fostering in the 0 to 5 age bracket, then one of you does need to be at home full time, because you know, those children will need you at home full time. So I think, Clea, is there anything you want to say about working and fostering?
I mean, I think from a fostering perspective, supervising social worker perspective, the starting point is going to be the needs of the child, and they are paramount. So as you say, I think work will need to be extremely flexible if you do work. I think you have to be prepared for unexpected events when you're fostering, such as a child that you may be matched with may be doing incredibly well at school and for whatever reason may come to you, and that just absolutely stops happening easily. And there may also be high levels of trauma need that emerge that perhaps weren't there when you were matched, and therefore you have to be responsive to the child as your priority. So I guess you have to be really clear that that's possible if you're working at the same time.
Thank you, Clea. Yeah, and I think just what I did forget to mention is that you also would just want you to consider that there are expectations of your time as a foster carer around, you know, being available for supervision with your supervising worker, being available to go to meetings for that child, so school meetings, review meetings, appointments, and training. So you know that there are a lot of kind of you know, requests on your time as a foster carer. So I think just thinking about whether you can do that. I think Clea wants to say a bit more about that.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, I just wanted to also say, in terms of the differential between fostering and work, then there's a lot about fostering that I would suggest is work. It's much more than offering a child a, you know, home and fun. It's work, and it's a profession, and it's a career. So I would be inclined to kind of lessen that divide between fostering and work in people's minds, because that might help reframe how you kind of approach fostering and other kinds of work.
Thanks, Clea. No, that's really, yeah, that's really important to add. And I think that's actually all the questions we've got this evening, Claire. So I think we've come to the end of our questions. So I think, you know, please have a look at our website, and, you know, if you would like to take the next steps to becoming a foster carer, fill in an inquiry form on the website, you know, and have and that will kind of lead to a telephone call with one of our duty workers. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about fostering, you know, I'd really recommend you looking at the website. It tells you about the different types of fostering. It gives you, you know, all the sort of really important information you would want to know at this stage is on there. So I would, you know, really direct you to have a look at that. So that's www.norfolk.gov.uk/fostering. And then we've also been working on a new podcast, which is all about fostering. So that's available, that's called Fostering Focus, and that's available on all podcast platforms. So I'd recommend you have a look at that. But, you know, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you, Claire, for being with me this evening, and to Scott and Camilla. And we hope to hear from you soon. Good night.